This training video is for bus drivers, transportation intervention aides, and transportation child care attendants. For principal step-by-step directions, see the Transportation Employee Kronos Guide available on the Training tab of your Kronos dashboard. The start times of the video clips of the different topics are listed for your reference. The training topics covered in this video include punching or clocking in and out at Kronos clocks, including the pressing of the blue buttons, how to log into Kronos, how to download the Kronos app, navigating your Kronos dashboard and timesheet, how to request time off, how to cancel a time off request, how to modify a time off request, how to report a missed punch for the start or end of your workday, for the end of your morning shift, or for the start of your afternoon shift, how to request an add time entry. This request is to be used for a day you worked but had 0 punches. How to request the adding of blue buttons, checking your timesheet near the end of each pay period, and how to use Kronos clocks to submit time off requests and timesheet change requests. So let's start off by looking at punching in and out at the Kronos clocks.
To punch in or out, hold your employee badge flat against the part of the Kronos clock that has the employee badge icon. If your punch is successful, the Kronos clock will make a sound and the Kronos clock screen will turn green with the message accepted, as you just saw. On scheduled workdays during the school year, when clocking out at the end of your AM trip, tap the End of First Shift button on the Kronos clock and then place your employee badge flat against the Kronos clock reader until the punch registers. When clocking in at the start of your PM trip, tap the Start of Second Shift button on the Kronos clock and then place your employee badge flat against the Kronos clock reader until the punch registers. When punching in or out, ensure that no other cards are close to your employee badge. For example, notice the error I get when I try to punch in holding my old building access card and employee badge together. If your punch is not accepted, you'll either receive the rejected error message as we just saw, or you won't receive any message. For example, notice what happens when I try to punch in using the old style employee badge with the slogan "Step up and make it happen" on the back of the card. Nothing happens. This is because the old style employee badges don't have the passive RFID within them, so there's no way to communicate with the clock.
If your badge is consistently not registering successful punches at Kronos clocks, email kronos@k12.oh.us and note each of the 3 items below. Please also note for new hires, please wait a week after hire date before emailing. Note your employee ID number, the 6-digit number on the back of your employee badge, which starts with a 2, and whether you're receiving a red error message on the Kronos clock when trying to clock in or out. A few other reminders regarding punching in or out. Never clock in or out for another person, also known as buddy punching. Each district clock accepts punches from all district employees. However, only punch at locations where you have been directed or permitted by your supervisor to work, receive professional development, attend a meeting, or perform some other work-related task. Avoid failing to clock in or out multiple times within a short time frame. And of course, always submit truthful and accurate Kronos requests, including any missed punch requests. Never submit requests with false information.
You can log into Kronos using a variety of devices, including your smartphone, tablet, desktop computer, or a laptop. You can log on to Kronos on any of these devices by using an internet browser, such as Apple Safari, Google Chrome, or Microsoft Edge. Additionally, if you have a smartphone or tablet, you also have the option of downloading a UKG-ready app. We'll talk about how to do that a little bit later on. We'll first look at how to log into Kronos using a web browser, in this case Apple Safari. Type in the web address for Columbus City Schools, ccsoh.us. Click the menu, Staff, and under Staff Quick Links, click Kronos. Here you'll be prompted to enter your username and password. Enter the username and password that you use to log into your email. Click Sign In. It will take you to your last tab that you used. For example, if you last used the Training tab, it will default to the Training tab. To switch between tabs, click the down arrow next to Training or Manager Self-Service or My Self-Service, as the case may be, and then select the tab you wish to use. Most of the time when you try to log into Kronos, you'll come to this login screen. It has Columbus City Schools and a logo against a white background. Sometimes when you attempt to log into Kronos, you'll see a login screen like this, instead of the one we saw earlier that had the Columbus City Schools logo against a white background. Another way that this login might look is shown here, where it just says sign in. It could be against a black background or a white background where it has sign in, and then it says requires a username and password. You can still log in this way, and sometimes you may have to try it a couple of times before it will successfully allow you to log in. The document on the screen is a summary of the steps we've discussed for how to log into Kronos. If you'd like, you can pause this screen at your convenience and use it as a quick reference guide for how to log into Kronos. Another way to use Kronos on your phone, and a very handy way at that, is to use the Kronos app. To do so, go to the App Store. Under Search, type in the name for this Kronos application. In this case, Kronos is called UKG. As an FYI, Kronos was purchased a little over a year and a half ago, and the name for the parent company is now UKG. So we'll type in UKG Ready. Click Search. Not downloaded it before. It may have a Get right there to click on, or some other way to say that you want that app. So go ahead and click that. In this case, because I've used it before, it's in the cloud. It's a free application. Click Open. And you won't be able to see this on the screen. A pop-up message will come up asking whether the UKG app can use your location. It will ask allow once, allow while using app, don't allow. Click Don't Allow. Under Select Your Region, select North America. Under Company Short Name, enter 607-9644, and then click Continue. Here you'll arrive at the login. You'll log in as you did earlier when you used the web browser. Now it asks, UKG Ready would like to send you notifications. You can click Don't Allow or Allow. If you click Allow, one handy feature of this is it will send you notifications related to your timesheets and time off approvals. So that can be handy, but if you find that annoying, you can simply click Don't Allow. And if you change your mind, you can go into Settings later and toggle either way. In this case, I'll click Allow. So it has the same look and feel as using a web browser, but with the advantage of the notifications and a few other features that are found on the app. Now, if you haven't used the app for a little while and you try to log in, sometimes you'll be presented with a Sign Out, you have successfully signed out page. Near the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a tiny home link. If you click that home link, it takes you back to the menu for Columbus City Schools. And there you just go through the process of signing in. And by signing in here, you're actually signing into the app. So when you successfully enter your username and password, you'll be logged back into your app. One other thing to be mindful of when you're downloading the app is if you go to the App Store and you type in UKG Ready, you download the app, and then you seek to open it, you may be presented with this white screen and you're not able to go past it. This is sometimes due to restrictions that are in the network for the Wi-Fi that you're attached to. So if that's the case, scroll out and remove the app, and then download it using a Wi-Fi network that doesn't have those restrictions. Or if you choose to, you can go to your settings, turn off Wi-Fi, and use cell data in order to download.
When you log into Kronos, you'll arrive at the Home tab. On your Home tab is a link to your timesheet under View My Timesheet, a link to request time off, and your current accrual balances. If you click on the Training tab, you'll see links to videos and how-to guides for your Kronos functions. Click the Home tab to go back to the main dashboard. Click View My Timesheet to open your timesheet for the current pay period. To see your timesheet for the previous pay period, you can click the left-facing arrow next to the date. To see your timesheet for the future pay period, you can click the right-facing arrow. In this example, we'll look at the previous pay period, so we'll click the left-facing arrow. In this timesheet, we see the schedule listed for each workday. The schedule will always show your standard hours per day, in this case, 5. Overtime at the top of the timesheet is the accumulated daily and span overtime for the timesheet pay period. Paid non-overtime is all other paid time other than overtime. And finally, the total paid time is the sum of the overtime accumulated for the pay period, as well as all other paid time for the pay period. Click the Summary by Day to see hours for the timesheet pay period, summarized by pay type and/or time off type. In this example, we see it summed up by the different types of pay: bus driver span overtime, extra service, overtime, personal illness, and regular, as well as by any unpaid time, in this case, unpaid span tracking. The difference between the pay period total and the total paid time is unpaid time, including any unpaid span tracking time, such as shown in this column, any unpaid time off, such as LWOP or AWOL, as well as any unpaid non-scheduled days. Click the Time Entry tab to go back to your timesheet. In this case, we'll click the right-facing arrow to go to the current pay period. Note the different exceptions or flags on this timesheet. On Tuesday, May 28th, there is a mispunch exception. A mispunch exception occurs when there is an odd number of punches for a day. For directions on how to fix a mispunch exception, see the video clip, How to Report a Mispunch. There is a missed day exception for Monday, May 27th. There are 2 possible causes for a missed day exception. The first possible cause is the employee worked that day, but neither clocked in or out. In such a case, the employee would need to submit a change request for an add time entry. For directions on how to do that, see the video clip, How to Request an Add Time Entry. The second possible cause for a missed day exception is the employee was absent. For directions on reporting absences, see the video clip, How to Request Time Off. For each workday during the school year, which a transportation employee worked morning and afternoon shifts with a middle unpaid non-work period, there should be 2 flags, a blue button end or a BB end and a BB start. So in this case, Wednesday, May 29th, the day is currently ongoing, so there is just a BB end, a blue button end, and an end of first shift. Assuming the bus driver clocks in at the start of their second shift and presses start of second shift, there will be 2 blue buttons, as there are for Tuesday, May 28th. To print your time card, scroll to the top of the time card, click the 3 dots next to Change Request, and then click Print. This will open different selections. You can adjust the selections as you see fit. Then to go ahead and print, click Print, and finally, Print again.
Before requesting time off, scroll down the home screen to the My Accrual Balances section. Check to see that you have a sufficient accrual balance to cover your time off request. After checking your balances, scroll back up to the My Schedule, My Time Off section and click My Time Off. Click the day on the calendar you want to request time off for. In this example, April 22nd. If you wish to select multiple days, select the first day of the request and select the last day of the request. This will select all the days in that range. If you select multiple days, please keep in mind that the dates must be consecutive days within the same week. Your request shouldn't include a day on a weekend, a holiday, a non-scheduled day, or a day with any time entry. However, in our example here, a single date, April 22nd, is selected. Click the icon in the Time Off Type field and select the time off type you wish to use. Submit FMLA-related time off requests in Kronos only if you have received HR approval for your FMLA leave request. Please also note that unpaid time off codes and some less commonly used paid time off codes are not available for selection here using Kronos self-service. If you need to request unpaid time off, such as unpaid FMLA if you qualify for FMLA, or need to request a paid time off type that's not listed in Kronos self-service, send a written request to your approver by email or in paper. Approved requests for such time off will be added to Kronos by your timekeeper or approver. Click the button next to the leave type you wish to use. In this case, it's personal illness. After you make the selection, the leave type will appear in the time off type box. Then click Start Request. After you click Start Request, a Request Time Off box will pop up. Click in the Request Type box and select one of the following options. If you select full day, the time off taken will equal the hours in your standard workday. A minute ago, we discussed how to select multiple days on the calendar. If you make the selection here, you can also choose multiple days with the same rules that apply. And finally, with partial day bulk, you can enter the number of hours you wish to take off for a selected day, and it can be less than your standard hours per day. Now, regarding the partial day bulk selection, please keep in mind that the number of hours you wish to take off, plus any combination of other time you worked on that day or other time off you requested for that day, shouldn't exceed the hours in your standard workday. Also, please note that if you select full day or partial day, the date requested off cannot be a date on a weekend, a holiday, or a non-scheduled day. So in this example, we select full day. When you select a request type, the date field appears. The date you selected on the calendar will default in. If you want to change your selection, click the calendar icon and select a date. In this example, though, the date is not changed. Sometimes people wish to attach documentation, such as a doctor's excuse, to support their time off request. If you wish to attach a document to your time off request, click the paperclip icon, then click Choose. Select a file to upload. After selecting the file, click Upload. Now click Close. You can also add a comment if you wish. After reviewing your time off request for accuracy, click Submit Request. Your time off request will be sent to your Kronos timesheet approver for approval, and your Kronos timekeeper will be copied on your request. After you make the time off request, but before the request is approved, the date on the calendar requested off will have a dotted line around the request. When your Kronos timesheet approver approves your time off request, you'll receive an email notifying you. After you log into Kronos, you'll also see that in your time off calendar that the dotted line around the request is now changed to a solid block. Finally, if you log into your timesheet and look at the selected day, you'll see that the time off has been successfully added. Kronos allows you to submit time off requests, including modifications, for dates within the current or future pay periods, as well as dates in the most recent past pay period if your timesheet hasn't yet been approved. Timesheets are generally approved on the Monday following the end of a pay period, and your timesheet hasn't yet been locked. Timesheets for each pay period are locked on the Wednesday following the end of a pay period. So as a general rule, submit time off requests for a past absence within 3 days of the absence or by the last day of the pay period, whichever is earlier. On your home screen, scroll to the My Schedule, My Time Off section and click My Time Off. An unapproved time off request has a dotted line around it. You can delete an unapproved time off request by clicking on the request and then clicking Delete. Click Delete again, and then click OK. The request is deleted. There are a couple of things to keep in mind about requesting the cancellation of approved time off requests. So the example that we just did was an unapproved request. So for approved time off requests, you can only request the cancellation of time off requests you've made. You can't cancel time off entered for you by a timekeeper or approver. For example, the timekeeper entered LWAP for April 23rd. The employee has no option to delete the LWAP entry. You can cancel time off requests made for the current or future pay periods. You may also cancel time off requests for the most recent past pay period if your timesheet hasn't yet been approved or the pay period locked, whichever occurs first. Timesheets are usually approved on the Monday following the end of a pay period. An approved time off request does not have a dotted line around it. Rather, it's a solid color, like the example shown here for April 17th. You can't directly delete an approved time off request. However, you can request the time off request to be canceled. To do so, click the request and then click Delete. Enter a brief reason for the request, and then click Request. Your time off request will be sent to your Kronos timesheet approver for approval. When your Kronos timesheet approver approves your time off request, you'll receive an email noting such. When you log back into Kronos and look at your My Time Off calendar, you'll see that the time off has been successfully removed. In this case, there is no time off request listed for April 17th. To modify an unapproved time off request, scroll to the My Schedule, My Time Off section of Kronos and click My Time Off. An unapproved time off request has a dotted line around it. Click on the unapproved time off request on the calendar and then click Modify. A Modify Time Off box will then pop up. Modifications must follow the same guidelines as time off requests. You can modify the time off request in one or more of the following ways: time off type, request type, and date. To change time off type, click the icon and then select the appropriate time off type. In this example, time off type is changed from personal illness to personal leave. To change request type, click the down arrow in the request type box and make a selection. Please note that if your original request type selection was multiple days, you cannot here modify the entry to full day or partial day. Rather, you must delete the request and then enter a new time off request. In this example, the request type is changed from full day to partial day. If you change from full day to partial day, the total hours box will become visible. You can then change the number of hours you requested. In this example, the total hours is changed from 8 to 4 hours. After making your changes, click Modify Request. The request modifies the original time off request. When your modified time off request is approved, you'll receive an email noting the approval, and a modified time off entry will be added to your timesheet. To modify an approved time off request, log into Kronos and click View My Timesheet. The timesheet for the current pay period will open. To request a modification to an approved time off request, you must have open the Kronos timesheet, which contains the date of the time off request. If necessary, you can use the left-facing arrow to go to the past pay period, or the right-facing arrow to go to a future pay period if your time off request is in one of those pay periods. In this example, the time off request is within the current pay period. Click Change Request, click the down arrow below Change Type and select Modify Time Off. Click the date of the time off request, then select the time off by clicking the right-facing arrow next to the record. Modifications must follow the same guidelines as time off requests. An approved time off request can be modified in one or both of the following ways: time off type, or the number of hours requested for a particular day. You can't request the modification of the date of an approved time off request. To change the date of an approved time off request, you must request the cancellation of the time off request and then submit a new time off request. To change the time off type, click the icon in the time off field and then select a different time off type. In this example, the time off type is changed from personal illness to personal leave. To change the total time requested for the date, delete the amount of time listed and enter the revised time off amount requested. In this example, the total time requested off for the day is changed from 8 to 4. Do not enter time in the from or to areas. Leave those blank. Enter a brief comment explaining the request, and then click Submit Changes. When your timesheet request is approved, you'll receive an email noting the approval. You can then log into Kronos, click View My Timesheet, and verify that the time off entry has been modified, as it has in this example.
We'll now take a look at how to fix missed punches. This is a test employee with a bus driver profile. For Monday, March 6th, we notice that there's a missed punch because there's a missed punch exception in red, and then there's a red box around the area where there's the missed punch. To fix this, click Change Request. Under Change Type, click the down arrow, select Add Punch In because it's a missed punch at the beginning of the day. Select the date for the missed punch and the time. Note the reason for the missed punch, and then click Submit Changes. You'll get a box that will pop up that says Change Request Submitted. You won't receive an email showing that the missed punch was submitted, but when you see this box, you'll know that it has successfully submitted. Only submit one missed punch request for each missed punch. For this particular case, if it's a day or two later and I still don't see that this missed punch has been fixed, don't submit another one. Rather, wait for your approver to approve the missed punch request, and it will then populate in this field.
When the approver approves a request, the employee will receive an email noting the approval. The employee can then log into Kronos and click View My Timesheet.
And here we see that the missed punch has been added. There's no longer a missed punch flag at the top, and there's no more red box around that. Second example we'll look at is a missed punch at the end of the day. Here on Tuesday, March 7th, again, we have the missed punch flag in red, and then the red box around the missed punch at the end of the day. To fix that, again, go to Change Request. Under Change Type, click the down arrow and click Add Punch Out. Then select the date. Make sure you select the correct date. One thing that people sometimes mistake is they choose the first day that comes up, but choose the date of the missed punch. And here we'll enter the time for the missed punch. It says AM. We want to change it to PM. To do that, just click that AM box once and it'll change it to PM. And then enter the reason for the missed punch.
When the approver approves a request, the employee will receive an email noting the approval. The employee can then log into Kronos and click View My Timesheet.
And we see that the time has been added. We'll now take a look at another scenario. On Friday, March 10th, the driver used sick leave in the afternoon. In the morning, she worked from 5 o'clock to 9:24 a.m. However, she forgot to swipe in at 5 o'clock. So when she swiped out for the day at 9:24 a.m., Kronos viewed it as the end punch since it was the only punch of the day. So how to fix this particular issue? Click Change Request. Under Change Type, select Add Punch In, since that's what you actually want this punch in request to be noted as. Select the correct day. Click Submit Changes.
When the approver approves a request, the employee will receive an email noting the approval. The employee can then log into Kronos and click View My Timesheet.
She scrolls down. She sees that the punch-in request has correctly been added, and it moved the 9:24 a.m., which was her actual punch-out time, from the from time to the to time. So it made that correction.
There is an alternative method to reporting missed punches. If you have any correctable missed punch exceptions, they will be listed on your Kronos home screen under the header Timesheet Errors, as shown here. To report the missing punches, click the hyperlinked message noting the number of missing punches, in this case, one missing punch. An Edit Current Timesheet box will open. To report a missed punch, enter the time in the empty From or To boxes. In this case, it's a missed punch in, so I'm noting the time I started work in the From box. A comment is required for each missed punch reported. Then click Submit. When the approver approves a request, the employee will receive an email noting the approval. The employee can then log into Kronos and verify that the missed punch has been added. For example, they won't see any timesheet errors for a missing punch, assuming they don't have any other missing punches that they need to report. Also, if they click View My Timesheet, they'll see that the missed punch has been successfully added to their timesheet.
This example for Monday, August 7th. And in this example, the driver didn't swipe out at the end of her morning shift, but she did swipe in for the morning shift. She swiped in for the afternoon shift and she swiped out for the afternoon shift. So in this example, we'll say that she actually ended her morning shift at 10:30 a.m., but she just failed to swipe. So how to solve this issue? Well, the first thing she'll want to do is click Change Request. Under Change Type, click Modify Punch Out. So she's going to modify this 1:36 p.m. punch out for the first line. Click the date that she wants to correct. In this case, Monday, August 7th. She wants to modify the punch out for the 5:07 a.m. to 1:36 p.m. So she clicks the right facing arrow. And then here she highlights the entry that she wants to change, types in the time that she wants to change it to, and also ensures that the AM and PM is correct. In this case, clicking the PM once to change it to AM and noting the reason for the change. So that's the first step to correcting this. The second is to note the middle non-working period. To do this, click Change Request, Add Time Entry, select the date, August 7th, and then the time for the non-working period. That's the time from the end of the morning shift to the beginning of the afternoon shift. In this case, 10:30 a.m. to 1:36 p.m. And then click the little down arrow and under bus driver span overtime, note end of first shift, and under comment, again, just write the reason. In this case, forgot to swipe out. So it sends that off. The bus driver's requests are approved. She receives an email noting that they were approved. So she opens Kronos, goes to My Timesheet, and then she looks and she sees that the day correctly has her entries reported, including with the blue button. See an example of this for Wednesday, August 9th. The driver swiped in for their morning shift, swiped out at the end of their morning shift, but they failed to swipe in for the beginning of their afternoon shift. Therefore, the non-working period and their afternoon shift are all combined, and there's even the end of first shift listed. So in order to fix this, the driver would need to do two steps. First, in this example, they would want to modify the punch in for the afternoon shift. They click Change Request, modify punch in, select the date, and then the record that they want to modify. In this example, the 9:43 a.m. So we'll say that they actually started at 12:30 p.m. for their afternoon shift, and a brief reason for why they're submitting the request. Click Submit Changes. The next thing that they want to do is click Change Request again. And now they want to enter in the non-working period. So they click under Change Type, Add Time Entry. They choose the date. They select that non-working period, which is the end of their morning shift to the beginning of their afternoon shift. Click the down arrow, select End of First Shift, and enter a brief reason for why they're making a request. Now we'll say the driver has received the emails back, noting that their requests have been approved. So they log back into Kronos, they click My Timesheet. Here they scroll down and they see that the entries have been approved, just like they requested. One thing they notice though is there's two end of first shifts that was caused by the initial issue. The driver can actually change this to start of second shift and click Save. So that's like a little mini step at the end to make this correct. We'll now look at the example for Wednesday, March 8th, where there were no swipes for the entire day. Kronos doesn't know whether there was simply time off that wasn't entered or whether there were missed punches. So it's just noted as a missed day. In this case, we'll say that it was an entire day of missed punches. To fix this one, click Change Request. And under Change Type, we're going to have a different entry. In this case, we're going to say Add Time Entry. Choose the date. In this case, it's Wednesday, the 8th. And here we're going to enter all of the punches for the day in one request. So to add another entry for that day, you click this plus arrow, which is what I just did. For afternoon and evening shifts, click the AM button to make it PM. And in this case, we want to add another note. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You click this down arrow and it pops open. Under bus driver span overtime, click End of First Shift. And in this way, it will correctly calculate your time. For the final entry, click this arrow and it opens up additional boxes, and under bus driver span overtime, select start of second shift. If you don't see these when you're initially looking, click browse and you'll see them then. Click start of second shift. Reason for the entries, click submit changes. So when the approver approves your request, you'll receive an email. You can go to your timesheet and verify that the request has been added. And here we see it's been added. We see the notes, lost badge. Another scenario we'll look at is where the blue buttons haven't been pushed for the day. Because the buttons weren't pushed on Thursday, March 9th, it didn't track span. So a way to fix that would be to click change request. We'll click add time entry. And here we're going to enter that middle time where you weren't at work, but where span tracking is necessary. We'll click this down arrow, click into first shift. And then you see the mistake I made, an easy mistake. Forgot to choose the date, but it doesn't allow me to submit the changes. So I go up to choose date, select the correct date. Now it will allow me to make the change. You get the notification once the approver has approved your request. Go into your timesheet. And here we see it's been added in the first shift. But to correctly calculate span, you'll also need to note the start of second shift for the last entry. And to do that, on your timesheet itself, the one area that you can actually make edits and then save is under bus driver span overtime. So here, click the magnifying glass and the piece of paper icon. Click start of second shift and click save. And now it correctly tracks your span overtime.
Kronos doesn't permit the submission of most types of timesheet change requests, such as for an add punch in or an add punch out, for future dates, even for a future date within the current pay period. Kronos allows you to submit such timesheet change requests for the current date and past dates within the current pay period, as well as dates in the most recent past pay period if that timesheet hasn't yet been approved. Timesheets are generally approved on the Monday following the end of a pay period, and if that timesheet hasn't yet been locked, timesheets for each pay period are locked on the Wednesday following the end of a pay period. As a general rule, submit timesheet change requests within 3 days of the occurrence or by the last day of the pay period, whichever is earlier. Near the end of each pay period, check your timesheet for exceptions. To do so, log into Kronos and click View My Timesheet.
Earlier in this video, we've talked about how to make the different corrections for different issues you may encounter with your timesheet. So we won't go into detail on how to make those corrections here, but rather we'll talk about what exceptions you want to be on the lookout for and a quick reference to the correction that you'll need to make in order to correct that exception. So one exception to look out for is when it's a regularly scheduled workday and there's only one blue button or no blue buttons. So in this case, for Monday, March 6th, there's just one blue button. So it will be important to add the start of second shift blue button to the last shift and then click save. Another thing to look out for is any missed punch exceptions with the red flag. And you can correct that by going up to change request and either doing an add punch in or add punch out, depending on whether it's at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. The final exception to look out for is the missed day exception. And here the correction you'll make will depend on why it's listed as a missed day. If it's a missed day because you weren't at work that day, you were absent, then you'll want to ensure you submit a time off request in Kronos to report that absence. If, however, you are working on that day and it's listed as a missed day because you didn't swipe in or out the entire day, then you would want to make a change request and add the time entry, as we showed earlier in this video. Now, once you've gone through your timesheet and you've addressed all these issues, then that's the end of your timesheet review. I'd also like to re-emphasize, don't submit a duplicate request if your earlier request has not been approved yet. Just wait for that request to be approved.
To use the Kronos clock to request time off, click Request Time Off, then tap your badge. You can scroll down to select the type of time off you want to use by touching the screen and then scrolling up. Ensure you don't select just the first sick leave that shows up, because the first one is sick leave, death, and family, unless, of course, that is the cause for your time off request. but in this case, we'll say it's sick leave, personal illness. I click select, and then I click submit again to verify. And I have the selection of full day, partial day, or multiple days. Full day would be for obviously the standard hours per day that you work. Partial day, you can select less than the standard hours per day. And in multiple days, you can select multiple consecutive days during a week span. In this case, I'll select partial day bulk and then click select. I click submit to verify, and then enter the date by tapping the calendar icon, selecting the date, entering the number of hours, then tapping enter. And here I can also enter a comment, and then click enter, and finally submit. And it creates the time off request. When your time off request has been approved, you'll receive an email noting such. You can then log back into Kronos and verify that the time off record has been added. To use the Kronos clock to make a timesheet change request, tap Timesheet Change Request, tap your badge, and then you can select the different types of timesheet change requests which are available. In this case, we'll say Add Punch In, click Select, click Submit to verify, tap the calendar icon to pick a date. In this case, we'll say the 15th, and enter the punch-in time. In this case, we'll say 8 o'clock. Note a comment. Click enter, verify what you've noted, and then click submit. When your timesheet change request is approved, you'll receive an email noting that approval. Then you can log into Kronos and verify that the punch-in or out or the timesheet change request has been added.
For help with Kronos login issues, contact the IT Help Desk at extension 8425. For help with using Kronos, contact your timekeeper or approver. If they need assistance helping you, they can reach out to the Kronos group. And finally, there is information on what to do if your badge is consistently not registering successful punches at Kronos clocks. This information was shared earlier in this video and is shared here as another reminder.